I think we're entering a 3 to 5 year tech bull market.
My view on that is...
Hi everyone, JJ here. Today I'm going to do something I don't usually do, which is react to a fellow finance YouTuber's video. Financial education, Jeremy, I'm sure you know who he is. He's been on here for years. He's reacting to finance media, gives his thoughts on it. I'm going to give my thoughts on him and to that video at the same time. Some people are predicting a very bullish next 3 to 5 years. Can we predict these things? Is it more about probabilities? Let's have a look. Let's get straight into it.
Next one up here, we're entering a 3 to 5 year tech bull market, says Gene Monster.
This is powered by AI. This is not about interest rates. This is about a fundamental shift in productivity. And I think we are going to be in the first year of what will be a tech bubble that is going to build over the next 3 to 5 years. It's the only logical outcome when there's a seismic shift like AI is to produce a bubble. And so with all the pros and all the cons, and so that's our setup, that's our framework going into this year. And I think when it comes to performance, the consensus is that the Mag 7 is not going to perform, not going to be leading the market, just given the strength that it had in 23. I agree with that consensus. I think that the substance of the performance is really going to come with that sub $20 billion market cap. And the reason I talked about this seismic shift in AI that's going to be starting to brew, these smaller companies are going to have an impact on that. And prediction that we have at Deepwater is that the Russell 2000 growth is going to outperform the S&P 500 this year. And so we feel great about that. We're all over this and think that this is going to be a great setup to what is a 3 to 5 year tech bull run.
Okay, let's see what Jeremy says about this. What I think there's the AI bubble. There already is a mini bubble, I think. We've had NVIDIA. If you look at NVIDIA stock, it's gone nuts. Yes, it's had very strong earnings, and a number of other stocks have benefited. I did a video yesterday about Micron Technology and Manish Paparai's thesis and Li Lu. They're both sold out of that stock because the thesis changed. Yet the stock has continued to run, and I think that's partly because of AI, well, mostly because of AI. In this past year, in 2023, it's now 2024. This is the first video from Jeremy in 2024. So let's see what he has to say about this 3 to 5 year bull run that this guy sees.
What do I view on that? My view on that is, I think it's potential. I think it's a potential. That would mean, we could call it at least 2 more years of kind of bull rally. If the economy can stay fine, I can definitely see that being a high probability.
Okay, what I like here is that he's immediately talking about probabilities, which a lot of these people on this mainstream finance, these networks, CNBC, which Jeremy watches a lot on his Twitch channel. I've seen him watching that a lot, reacting to things. What I think is that a lot of people predict, there was one with Tom Lee, who's like a permabull. People predict, they come on and say, this is going to happen. I think this is going to happen. And they have price targets for stocks. Absolute price targets. They say that the market's going to go up 25, 30, 50%, whatever it is, and they have these absolute targets. Investing, of course, is about probabilities. Nothing is certain. Don't forget that what can happen. We had a pandemic slam into the world in 2020, and there are so many things that can happen. So I like that Jeremy's talking about probabilities. But he doesn't always do that. Quite often he comes in and says, this is what I think that's going to happen. Just saw another video, his second video of the year, where he talks about what he thinks is going to happen in the first quarter, second quarter. He said he knew what was going to happen after the new year, where the market's going down on the first day of trading. I think he sometimes falls into the trap of predicting absolutes, even though what I like is saying here about probabilities.
If the economy's fine in 24 and 25 and maybe even strengthens, I think it's 100% on in regards to that, as long as the economy holds, right? And I think that does roll all the way up until we get the next big recession, which the next big recession we get, that's going to be the one where unemployment's going to go up massively. But that could be several years away, so just do keep that in mind. Everybody expected it this year, now they're trying to push it off to this year, and blah, blah, blah.
It's almost embarrassing how many economists predicted the recession that hasn't happened yet. Could happen yet. Some investors predicted it too. Stan Druckenmiller thought it was going to happen. It'll be interesting to see what he's got to say about this year. He's a macro investor mainly. He go in and out of stocks, changes his mind from week to week, and he's done very well over 30 years. But there's only a handful of people who can do that. Another Jeremy Grantham, who's said there's an AI bubble, it's going to pop, and it's sort of paused this big, massive super bubble popping. Seth Klarman has said there's been an everything bubble. In a recent podcast, he said it deflated in 2022, but he's recently said it's going up again. We certainly have had a pretty stellar 2023, and now we're into 2024. So I think, we don't want to fall into the trap of trying to guess what the economy is going to do. We could have another great year. It could be a terrible year for the market. We just don't know. Sometimes good years are followed by bad years. Sometimes, as that guy said, that could run into a bubble, a 3 to 5 year market bubble based on AI, like the .com bubble was. But we just don't know. We can't predict that. I would not like to predict what's going to happen in 2024. I wouldn't even try. It's one of the reasons why I'm making these videos, because I don't think people should do that. Now, if you're getting value out of this episode so far, please remember to hit that like button to help the algorithms to spread it to more people, because that's what we want. Thanks.
Ultimately, that could be a few years away, right? We could kind of be a little bit more in a 2003, 2004 time frame right now, okay? And so, yeah, I think that's pretty realistic to have at least a couple more years of a bull rally in a lot of these big tech stocks up until you hit the next big recession.
I think it's an AI-animated bubble, at least becoming that down the road. It seems like the market's craving different ways to gain leverage to that trend. I mean, NVIDIA doing what it does, the earnings...
And I'm not convinced we'll have a bubble that will brew. I'm not convinced at all in regards to that.
Jeremy's not super bullish on a bubble happening. I think there's some probability that could happen if the developments in AI come out and the market keeps being super exuberant about AI and that spreads, which I think is what this guy's saying, and what Dan Ives also says, another analyst who's super bullish, thinks this is the beginning of a multi-year run in tech stocks. It could happen. It might not happen. We really don't know. It's fun and entertaining to speculate, but we just don't know. Now, in case you don't know, I've started the Art of Value Patreon community. For just the price of a cup of coffee each month, I'm providing exclusive content, exclusive videos, extended videos, all ad-free, of course. So I'll put a link in the description to that. Go and check it out, and hopefully see you over there.
Let's talk broader tech here. Again, our viewers see you often, so we know where you stood towards the end of last year. This is going to be a big AI moment, and it's going to create a bull market overall for how many companies in technology this year, Dan?
Well, again, talk about it here is that our new AI checks, and me and you've talked on the program a lot about use cases. Mm-hmm. Use cases are exploding. I mean, the average enterprise right now that we're talking to is seeing 15 to 20 potential use cases within their companies. That's why right now we think it's going to be 8-10% of budgets. And I think that's the important thing. You look, it's not just the godfather of AI and NVIDIA and Jensen. It's not just what's happened in Redmond. I think you're going to see the spread across the board in software and chips, which is why we believe tech stocks will be up 25% this year. And we could have some ebbs and flows, but I believe it's get out the popcorn moment. The new tech bull market has begun.
Wow. 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 Woo-wee. Whew. I mean, a few of these guys are so bullish on tech, obviously. I think it's very clear, right? The Gene Munsters, the Dan Ives, these sorts of fellas are, extremely bullish on tech. But
yeah,
the one thing I will say is there's still so many on Wall Street that aren't that bullish. So, if everybody had a Dan Ives approach to this market and a Gene Munster approach to this market, all the Wall Streeters kind of believed what those guys believe, I would be much more concerned about this market. But the fact is, I still look out there and see so many of these Wall Streeters not that excited about the market, still bearish, still kind of like, I don't know, we'll see type. That makes me feel very comforting. When everybody starts to take the Dan Ives and the Gene Munster type approach, that's when I'm going to start to get much more concerned. But we're not at that moment yet. We could get to that moment, but we're not at that moment yet. And so, maybe in a year from now, it's a total different situation. If the economy stays good and even strengthens this year, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this time next year, it seems like everybody on the bandwagon, right? And that's when I start to become a little concerned about the market.
I agree with Jeremy here to a certain extent. I mean, Dan Ives is saying 25% for tech. It could go up that much. It could do, again, predicting. That's So he said, we see that, but it's again trying to predict a year. Predicting any year in the market is kind of ridiculous because it can go either way depending on macro events, on world events, could just send it down. And then he said, well, it would have happened if this didn't happen. But generally, if the AI boom turns into a bubble, it could go on. Jeremy seems to think that it's not too exuberant yet. I mean, if we look at some of the stocks like Nvidia last year and some of the other stocks, it really has taken off. It really propelled the market this past year, even though tech had a really bad year before that. But really, we just don't know. We can't predict the future again. I'm going to say this again and again. We can look at taking the temperature of the market. Howard Marks talks about taking the temperature of the market, what interest rates are like, what credit's like. Is there easy credit? Is there loose credit? Is money flowing? And I would say that AI sector is pretty exuberant. It's been that, but it could go on. If we look back in history, those people who went through the dot-com bubble, if we look at history to the dot-com bubble, it really got carried away again, year after year after year it built. And that's really what these analysts are saying will happen, or they think this. They didn't even say probability. They think that's what will happen. Like between 1 and 10, what's the probability? That's what I want to hear. Not just this will happen, that will happen. But as I said, media likes to get people to state an opinion, like either this will happen and then play off people against each other, but we just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Now, I'd love to know what you think. Do you think it's possible to predict the stock market over the short term or even a year or over a longer time frame? Do you think it's possible to do that? Or, as I say, is it more about probabilities? Is it better to stick to fundamentals of the companies, of the stocks, and go with that and think long term? Do you ignore the macro, or do we need to take that into account? Let me know in the comments. Now, everybody, don't forget to check out the Patreon link in the description. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to what YouTube thinks that you in particular should watch next. Thanks to everyone for watching or listening, and I'll see you in the next one.